You ever seen a storm lose its power the moment the winds die down? That is what happens when a narcissist realizes you do not care anymore. No more reactions, no more fear, no more control, just silence. And that silence, it shakes them more than any scream ever could. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, the first thing that hits them is the loss of control. For a narcissist, control is not just something they want. It is the very foundation of how they interact with others from the beginning. They study you, they learn what makes you smile, what makes you cry, and what makes you react. They build a psychological playbook tailored just for you. They use praise, guilt, fear, charm, and even silence as tools to manipulate and maintain emotional dominance. This is not love, it is possession wrapped in the illusion of affection. And once you step away mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that power they once had begins to crumble. Control to the narcissist equals validation. If they can make you chase them, cry for them, argue with them, or even hate them with passion, they feel alive. Your reactions feed their ego. Your confusion fuels their sense of superiority. As long as they can get a rise out of you, they believe they still matter. But when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, defending, or justifying, when the silence from your end becomes consistent and unshaken, that illusion of control disappears. It does not just disappear peacefully, it collapses violently in their mind. They start to sense the shift long before you think they do. They are highly tuned into power dynamics, especially when it starts slipping from their fingers. They may act like they do not notice. They may pretend they do not care, but behind the mask, they are panicking. Detachment confuses them completely. Why are not you begging anymore? Why aren't you checking in, arguing, or crying? They replay conversations. They analyze your new stillness. For someone addicted to control, that stillness is the scariest thing in the world. At this point, the narcissist may try to regain footing. They will say things to provoke you, maybe something cruel, something passive-aggressive, something that used to always get a reaction. They want to see if there is still some hook left in you. But when you remain unfaced, they feel exposed and weak, and that is something they work overtime to avoid. Their identity is built on being untouchable and in control, admired or feared, but never ignored. Indifference from someone they once controlled is a signal the game is over. This loss of control can also make them reflect, though not in the way most people would. They will not sit down and think about what they did wrong to push you away. Instead, they will wonder how they lost the ability to keep you hooked. They will blame you for becoming cold, disloyal, or ungrateful. They cannot process that the problem was never your devotion. It was their exploitation of it. So they may shift quickly into defensive tactics, acting as if they were the one who walked away, rewriting the story so they do not have to sit with the truth. They lost you because they never truly had you, only your emotional energy. And yet, despite the internal chaos, they will often pretend like nothing is wrong. Narcissists are actors. They might start flaunting new relationships, achievements, or a sudden burst of joy, trying to trigger jealousy or doubt in you. But it is just theater, a performance to regain control, not over you directly, but over how they are perceived. They cannot control you anymore. So they try to control the narrative. What they do not understand is that when someone truly stops caring, they have already mourned the relationship. They have already grieved the false hope and emotional abuse. What is left is clarity. And clarity is the death of manipulation. So the narcissist does not just lose a person, they lose the illusion that they were ever truly in control. And for them, that is the most devastating loss of all. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, one of their most common and telling reactions is either erupting into rage or retreating into cold silence. Both responses are defense mechanisms designed not only to reassert dominance but also to punish you for daring to detach emotionally. This is not random. It is deeply calculated, rooted in the narcissist's fragile ego and an obsessive need to be the center of your emotional world, whether through love, fear, or chaos. Narcissistic rage is not like ordinary anger. It is explosive, disproportionate, and often unpredictable. It comes from the deep wound of perceived rejection or abandonment. The moment you stop reacting, stop chasing, and stop being affected by their games, the narcissist experiences what psychologists call a narcissistic injury, a blow to their carefully constructed self-image. That injury does not just sting, it burns. And instead of sitting with that discomfort or reflecting on their behavior, they project it outward. You become the target. You will hear harsh words, see irrational outbursts, and possibly experience character assassination. They might say things designed to cut deep, to invalidate your worth, to attack your identity, and to make you question the very progress you have made. But the goal is not just to hurt you. The goal is to shock you back into emotional engagement. The narcissist does not care if you cry, scream, or fight back. As long as you feel something, as long as you give them energy, your emotional response confirms that they still matter, that they still have influence. They thrive off this kind of toxic connection where chaos is mistaken for passion and manipulation is mistaken for love. If rage fails to ignite you, if you remain calm in the face of their fury, the narcissist may suddenly switch tactics, shifting from fire to ice. Cold silence is another powerful weapon in the narcissist arsenal. It is not peaceful. It is punishing. It is designed to make you feel invisible, unworthy, or abandoned. The narcissist wants you to feel the void they have created, hoping it will pull you back toward them. They might ignore your messages, pretend you do not exist in a shared space, or completely disappear, only to return when they sense your emotional walls cracking. This kind of silence is not about needing space or reflection. It is about control. It is a power play, an emotional freeze-out, meant to provoke insecurity in you. The narcissist believes that if they withhold attention and affection long enough, you will come crawling back just to feel something again. This back and forth between rage and silence creates a psychological trap. For people who have been entangled with a narcissist, these extremes can be confusing. You may begin to question yourself. Was I too harsh? Did I do something wrong? That is the design. The narcissist wants to keep you emotionally unstable, questioning your own reality so they can slip back in and reclaim control. But what they fail to realize is that real detachment is resilient. When you truly no longer care, their rage becomes noise and their silence becomes space. You begin to see through the performance. You recognize that neither the outburst nor the absence is about you. It is about them scrambling to maintain relevance in a world where their manipulation no longer works. And that realization for the narcissist is infuriating. Whether through loud, destructive anger or chilling, calculated silence, the narcissist is reacting to one truth they cannot tolerate. They are losing their emotional grip. And for someone whose entire sense of worth is built on controlling how others see and feel about them, that is a terrifying reality. So they fight it in the only ways they know, by being louder, meaner, colder, and more distant, hoping you will break and they will win. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, their first instinct is not acceptance or reflection. It is desperation. That desperation drives them to manipulate. But this time, the manipulation takes a different form. It is not the early charm or subtle mind games you may have once fallen for. Now it is frantic. It is disorganized. It is fueled by fear. They know you are slipping away, and they will try every tactic in their emotional playbook to pull you back in. This is when the love bombing returns, the guilt tripping begins, and the performance of victimhood takes center stage. They may start by acting like they have changed. Suddenly, they are kind, thoughtful, and saying all the right things. You will hear lines like, "I have been thinking about us," or "I did not realize how much I hurt you." These are not confessions rooted in growth. They are calculated moves meant to reset the emotional connection and make you doubt your decision to walk away. They will recall memories that once meant something to you, trying to stir nostalgia. They will offer apologies, not because they feel remorse, but because they need you to respond. Every gesture is calculated, and they are hoping you will bite. If love bombing does not work, they shift to guilt. This is where they remind you of everything they supposedly did for you. They will twist history, they exaggerate their sacrifices, and downplay their mistreatment. "After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me" becomes a common phrase. The goal is to make you second guess your feelings. They want you to wonder if maybe you overreacted, if maybe you were too harsh, if maybe, just maybe, they deserve another chance. It is emotional blackmail cloaked in sentimentality. They know guilt is a powerful tool, especially when used against someone who once cared deeply. Then comes the act of victimhood. This is when the narcissist paints themselves as the one who has been wronged. They will tell mutual friends, family, or even social media that you abandoned them, that you were cold, and that they were trying their best while you simply walked away. They rewrite history to secure sympathy, ensuring that even in their defeat, they remain the central figure of the tragedy, forever refusing to accept the quiet peace of your absence while they desperately search for the next target to feed the hollow emptiness inside their fractured soul. It is not enough that they lost control over you. They want to control how others see you too. They need sympathy. They need an audience to applaud their performance. And in some cases, they need new supplies, someone else to admire them, to feed their ego, to play the role you walked away from. Even while seeking someone new, they often keep trying to reel you back in, because your detachment still feels like a wound they cannot heal. Throughout all of this, there is a deep sense of urgency behind their actions. The manipulation feels heavier and more intense because they can sense your emotional door closing. Narcissists rely on emotional reactions. When you are angry, upset, or even defending yourself, you are still giving them attention. But when you no longer react at all, they start to unravel. It is like trying to revive a dying flame while a storm is raging around you. They panic, they scramble, they get reckless. They might even cycle through all their tactics within days, trying love bombing in the morning, guilt tripping by lunch, and passive-aggressive silence by evening. These last-ditch manipulations are not about love, they are about survival. It is emotional survival for a person whose identity is tied entirely to how others perceive and respond to them. They simply do not know who they are without an audience. Without someone to manipulate and without someone emotionally tied to them, your indifference exposes that truth. It shows them a mirror they cannot handle. It reflects their lack of true connection, their emptiness behind the charm, and the harsh reality that their games no longer work. So they try harder, not because they care about you, but because they cannot stand that you have stopped caring about them. When a narcissist realizes you do not care anymore, they experience a type of internal collapse that many people around them never see. On the outside, they may appear composed or even indifferent, but on the inside, their ego begins to unravel completely. What you are witnessing is not just disappointment or hurt. It is something far deeper and much more fragile. The narcissist's entire identity is built around a carefully constructed image of superiority, power, and control. They survive on the validation and the emotional energy of other people. So when you no longer react, when you no longer seek their approval or respond to their drama, it is like pulling the plug on their power supply. Without that supply, their sense of self starts to crumble. This ego collapse does not look like a quiet moment of realization. It looks like confusion, anger, and desperation. Narcissists rely heavily on illusions. They genuinely believe they are smarter, more attractive, and more important than those around them. These beliefs are never grounded in reality. They are merely defenses against deeply rooted insecurity. They need other people to reflect those illusions right back to them. They need people to admire them, fear them, or envy them. When someone close to them detaches emotionally, it completely disrupts that reflection. Suddenly, the narcissist is forced to confront a truth they have been running from their whole life. They are not as powerful or as necessary as they believe they are. This confrontation is deeply painful for them, but they cannot show it in a healthy or vulnerable way. Instead of expressing sadness or remorse, they lash out or they withdraw entirely. They may try to rebuild their ego by blaming you, telling themselves that you were simply ungrateful, disloyal, or unworthy. That blame is not just about hurting you. It is about protecting themselves from the painful truth that their manipulation failed. If they admit the truth that someone saw right through them and walked away without looking back, it breaks the illusion completely. That kind of emotional exposure is unbearable for someone who has built their entire identity around being untouchable. To cope with this severe ego injury, they often create a brand new version of events in their mind. In this new version, they were never abandoned or ignored. Instead, they convince themselves that they were the ones who left you. They tell themselves you were not strong or healed, but rather cold and cruel. This false narrative helps them preserve their fragile sense of superiority. They may even spread this version of the story to other people, using it to win sympathy and admiration. They simply cannot accept the idea that you walked away because you saw them clearly, because that kind of clarity threatens their entire emotional structure. Sometimes this ego collapse drives them to obsess over you. It happens not because they love you, but because they need to win again. They need to prove to themselves and possibly to others that they still have control and that they can still pull you back in whenever they want. They may monitor your life from a safe distance, watching closely to see if you miss them or if you are struggling. If you have truly moved on, your peace becomes their ultimate proof of failure, and your silence becomes much louder than any argument you ever had with them. In their twisted world, detachment equals absolute defeat. If they cannot provoke you in any way, they feel completely erased. For a narcissist, being emotionally irrelevant is one of the most terrifying things they can ever experience. That is why the ego collapse is so intense for them, because it is not just about losing a relationship, it is about losing the grand fantasy of who they think they are. It forces them to face a massive emptiness that they've spent years covering up with charm, power plays, and constant manipulation. When someone walks away completely unaffected, unmoved, and uncaring, that inner emptiness echoes louder than ever before. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care and all their usual tactics fail to pull you back in, they often begin looking for a brand new source of supply. This is never a coincidence or a random move. It is a desperate survival mechanism. Narcissists do not just want attention or admiration. They desperately need it to maintain any sense of self-worth. Your indifference becomes a mirror they cannot bear to look into. So rather than facing the discomfort of rejection and insignificance, they turn outward, searching for someone new to validate their ego and feed their endless emotional hunger. This search for a new supply happens very quickly in most cases. Narcissists absolutely hate emotional voids, and your silence creates a massive vacuum that threatens their very sense of identity. They never reflect, heal, or process the end of a relationship the way emotionally healthy individuals do. Instead, they go hunting. They look for someone who is open, empathetic, and maybe even vulnerable. They look for someone they can easily impress, charm, and eventually manipulate. This is never about love. It is never about genuine connection. It is entirely about control, admiration, and the emotional fuel they crave to survive. The new person is rarely chosen because of genuine compatibility. They are chosen simply because they are available and willing to give whatever the narcissist is now missing from you. They want attention, praise, and an emotional reaction. The narcissist will often present themselves as an innocent victim to this new person.